What's up, YouTube? Thanks for joining the channel. My name is Jason. As always, if you like Harley content, if you like rides, rants, and reviews, go ahead and click that like and subscribe button. We have a lot of content planned throughout the year. Today we're going to talk about the age-old question, the question that I've received multiple number of times on my Instagram and YouTube. People reaching out to me and saying, hey Jason, is the Lowrider S good for beginners? Now, I don't know how to answer this question on YouTube or Instagram because it's a very complex question. Seemingly, it's a very innocent question, which is, hey, should I get the Lowrider S? I have no experience. I'm a new rider. I'm a beginner. You know, the easiest thing to say is, no, the Lowrider S isn't good for beginners, but I think that's quite wrong. I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube about Lowrider S for beginners. What I usually see is people saying, no, it's a very advanced bike. It's a bike for advanced riders. It's for people who have ridden for a few years and can handle the weight and the power of the bike. I just think that's a little short-sighted. No offense to people who put out those videos. And generally, I don't really like the idea of putting out blanket statements like that, like the Lowrider S is not good for beginners. Not everyone's the same. That was a long-winded intro, I know, but that's what we're going to talk about. Is the Lowrider S good for beginners? Now, I'm not going to say one way or the other because, again, I said I don't like giving out blanket statements, but we'll walk through some of the pros and some of the cons. And if you are a new rider thinking about getting the Lowrider S, stick to the end of the video because I think I have some questions that you can ask yourself or things that you can think about that'll really help you answer the question, should I get the Lowrider S as a beginner? All right, let's get into it. I want to set some baselines before we start. I want to talk about, you know, some of the pros and the cons of getting a Lowrider S as a beginner. So some of the cons, and typically I've seen this throughout many YouTube videos, but cons are, you know, it's a bigger bike, both in size and weight. And of course, bigger is all relative, right? It's bigger than a Sportster. It's bigger than a lot of bikes. So I can kind of see that statement being true. Generally for new riders, that's kind of hard to handle. It might be easier to start on a smaller bike. I've also seen people talk about like the power of the Lowrider S, that it's, you know, it's up there. It's 1800 plus cc's. I think it's got like 100 plus foot-pounds of torque. I always forget the number. And the horsepower is generally something we don't know about. On the relative scale of things, I would say it's geared towards more seasoned riders. Sure, I can see that point. And then you have the cost of the Lowrider S. In combination of the size and the weight, it's an expensive bike. It's about $18,000. Where that comes into play is if you get into an accident or if you drop the bike, then that's where you get into trouble because fixing up this bike is going to be really expensive. There you have it, the cons of getting the Lowrider S for a beginner. I think those are all valid reasons to a certain extent. And I'll get more into that in the later sections of this video. But let's talk about the pros of the Lowrider S. The pros of getting the Lowrider S straight away as a beginner is that this is going to be the bike that you most likely keep and grow with for a long period of time. A lot of times beginner bikes, they just don't have a lot of room to advance. What I've seen most frequently, ooh, look at that car. What I've seen most frequently is people getting an Iron 883 or an Iron 1200 and immediately trading it up for a Lowrider S or maybe a Street Bob. Yeah, that's kind of what I've seen. The pros of getting the Lowrider S straight away is that, you know, you can bypass all of that, right? You can save yourself some money. You don't have to go through all of those things, and you just get the bike you want straight from the start. This is definitely a capable bike that you can grow into, that you can learn on. This is a capable bike that can do just about anything that you throw at it. I've always said this in all my videos, but the Lowrider S is just such a versatile bike. And then let's talk about saving money throughout this whole process, right? Like if you go straight into a Lowrider S, you save yourself a lot of money, a lot of headache, a lot of time. That's important too. Instead of having to go through getting a Sportster and then getting the Lowrider S or what all the steps that you take to get to the Sportster, you bypass all of that. So I think there's some pros, and I think you really have to take stock of what your priority is. Do I want to save money? Do I want to be safe? I feel like I just did a circle. Yeah, I just did a roundabout. Let's try this way. So we talked about the pros, we talked about the cons, and I'm sure I might have missed a few, but I think I got the general idea, right? And I think if you are a beginner trying to decide whether or not you should go straight into the Lowrider S or a more beginner-friendly bike, you probably know all of this, right? And if you've watched a lot of videos or if you've talked to people, they might tell you, well, you should go this way. Definitely get the Lowrider S, or you might have heard, no, the Lowrider S is not good for beginners because it's such a big and heavy and powerful bike. So what are you supposed to do? And I think that's a really tough place to put new riders in because who are they supposed to listen to? And at the end of the day, I think they just probably go with their gut. I think what I believe in is that everyone's different. I think it's really hard to put out those blanket statements out there because you're basically treating everyone the same, but everyone's not the same. Yes, new riders or beginner riders will share probably some common characteristics. Sure, I understand that, but within that, I think there is a lot of variability. So I'll share a story of exactly what I mean by this. I took the MSF course. So in the MSF course, the instructor asked, does anybody have any riding experience? And nobody in my class had riding experience. We were all starting from the same place, the same starting line. You would think that we would all progress the same way, but guess what? Some people did really well, some people didn't. And we've all been there. We've met people that in life, they're just naturally good at certain things. Sports, for example, there are some people that are just naturally gifted, even though they might have never held a basketball or a football. And I would say that's true for motorcycling. And here's why this matters. So without knowing this information, without knowing who you really are, it's hard for me, it's hard for anybody else to kind of give you advice on what you should do. So I think in general, you have to be just really honest with yourself. That's what it comes down to. You know yourself best. You know what you're capable of, you know what you're not capable of, you know what you're afraid of. Just take a hard look in the mirror and ask yourself those things like, do I think I can handle this bike? Am I mature enough to be able to respect the bike because it is powerful, it is big, it is heavy? Do I have deep enough pockets to be able to afford things if something goes wrong on this bike? Just ask yourself those questions, and I think eventually you'll come to the right answer. I don't think anybody can really give you a better answer than what you can give yourself. The question that I asked myself was like, am I mature enough to handle this power? Do I tend to speed? Do I tend to get into trouble? Do I tend to make dumb mistakes? And I felt like I was in a good enough place where I could handle this bike in a mature fashion. Yeah, I still do dumb stuff here and there, but like for the most part, I think I have a pretty good sense of self-control. Let's talk about things that can help you if you are gonna go straight into a Lowrider S. And we're gonna pull over here, do a little walk around on the bike. This is the skate park that I take my kid. He does some skateboarding. Check that out. Nobody's here right now, but yeah, I'm super stoked that he's into skateboarding. It's kind of cool. If you are dead set on getting a Lowrider S as your first bike, by all means go for it. I'm not in a position to be able to tell you one way or another, but I will say here's some general things to think about. One, taking an MSF course. I think they're going to walk you through some of the basics. It's just good experience overall. And lastly, you'll get some seat time on different bikes. Two, if there are Harley dealerships around you, go for a test ride. Go sit on the bike, put your butt on the seat, stand it up, see how it feels to you. Get a couple of rides in. Go to the Harley dealer and say, hey, can I test ride this bike? Because obviously the best way to know for yourself if you can handle the Lowrider S is to test ride one. I know that a lot of people have gone straight towards a Lowrider S and been perfectly fine. Guys, thank you for sticking with me on this video. I know it was a little long-winded. I just don't agree with blanket statement of advice about whether you should do this or not based on your experience or lack of experience. Take inventory of yourself, assess whether or not you think you're capable of handling a bike like the Lowrider S. That's it for me today, guys. Thanks for tuning into this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found that this information was useful, especially if you are a beginner and thinking about the Lowrider S. Let me know what your thoughts are in terms of new riders going straight into a Lowrider S or, a different bike that's a little bit more advanced. Do you recommend it? Do you not? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.